In Hong Kong's northern suburbs, the focus has shifted from the immediate shock to a bigger question. How did a standard renovation project turn into the region's worst residential fire in decades? Authorities are now trying to piece together a difficult puzzle involving high-rise towers, ongoing construction work, and a series of safety warnings that were reported months before the disaster happened. Those ignored reports are now expected to be the most important evidence as the investigation grows. The story begins on a Wednesday afternoon at Wang Fuk Court, a massive housing complex that is home to about 4,800 people. Located in the city's northern districts near the border, this site is made up of 8 towers, and 7 of them were eventually hit by the fire. Residents had spent months getting used to the repairs, living with the scaffolding and nets that covered their buildings. While most people thought the work was just a noisy annoyance, few realized that these conditions were actually setting the stage for a major tragedy. The fire ignited on a lower-level section of scaffolding attached to one of the towers. Investigators later indicated that the point of origin involved a section of netting used to cover the scaffolding. Once ignited, the blaze made rapid progress upward, accelerated by foam insulation panels that had been installed as part of the refurbishment work. City officials would later describe how these foam components intensified the heat, caused windows to rupture, and permitted flames to enter indoor residential units almost immediately. Foam insulation, commonly used for energy efficiency, can vary widely in fire resistance. In many regions, strict flame retardant standards are required. Hong Kong's construction sector has previously faced scrutiny over inconsistent compliance in product sourcing, an issue the current investigation is revisiting. As the blaze spread from facade to interior, firefighters arrived to confront what quickly became an uncontrollable inferno. It took crews nearly a full day to bring the flames under relative control, and roughly 40 hours to extinguish the final hotspots. During this time, first responders attempted to prioritize units from which emergency distress calls had been logged. Yet the speed of the fire, combined with collapsing interior structures and intense heat, prevented access to numerous apartments for prolonged periods. By the time the fire was subdued, 128 people had lost their lives, making the event one of the most lethal structural fires in the city's modern history. For comparison, the previous major deadly blaze occurred in 1996 when a commercial tower fire in Kowloon claimed 41 lives. An even earlier tragedy, a warehouse fire in 1948, caused 176 deaths. These historical parallels underscored the severity of the Wang Fuk Court incident and helped explain the scale of the government's response. The human toll extended beyond fatalities. 79 individuals were injured, including 12 firefighters. One responding firefighter died while attempting to reach stranded residents. Smoke continued to leak from the blackened skeleton of the towers for days, occasionally reigniting smaller hotspots that had to be suppressed by remaining crews. Amid the chaos, the city's fire services department began testing emergency systems throughout the complex. Inspectors reported that several fire alarms failed to activate during checks performed after the incident. While they did not disclose the precise number of malfunctioning units, they acknowledged that a portion of the system did not function as designed. This discovery raised additional questions about maintenance standards within the complex, which housed many elderly residents who may have been less able to evacuate without adequate warnings. Parallel to the emergency response, a criminal investigation was unfolding. Police had already arrested 3 men linked to a construction company responsible for renovation work, detaining them initially on suspicion of manslaughter and gross negligence. Although these individuals were later released on bail, the inquiry expanded quickly. Authorities then arrested 8 more people, 7 men and 1 woman, aged between 40 and 63. These individuals included scaffolding subcontractors, engineering consultancy directors, and project managers tasked with overseeing the renovation. Hong Kong's Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, is one of the world's most renowned anti-corruption bodies, formed in the 1970s to combat systemic graft. Construction and building safety have historically been areas where the ICAC has pursued high-profile investigations, particularly when procurement processes or safety inspections appear compromised. Though police did not publicly name the company under investigation, documents accessible on the Homeowners Association's website indicated that the renovation project had been overseen by the Prestige Construction and Engineering Company. Subsequent police actions included seizing boxes of documents from the company's premises, where phone calls reportedly went unanswered in the days following the disaster. Investigators also focused on verifying the safety certifications of materials used in the renovation, such as netting and foam components, attempting to determine whether substandard supplies played a decisive role in the fire's escalation. The Labor Department disclosed that residents had submitted complaints as early as mid-2024 regarding the safety of the construction netting surrounding the buildings. Officials confirmed that they had conducted 16 inspections between July 2024 and the time of the fire, issuing multiple written warnings to contractors, instructing them to ensure compliance with fire safety regulations. According to the department, the netting used did meet certification standards, a detail that remains under technical scrutiny as investigators attempt to reconcile compliance documentation with the severity of the fire's spread. The disaster also carried an international dimension. Among the dead were 2 Indonesian migrant workers. 11 more Indonesian domestic helpers who worked in the complex were still unaccounted for as of Friday following the fire. The Indonesian Foreign Ministry and Consulate, responding to concerns raised by families, coordinated closely with Hong Kong authorities and sought information on missing individuals. With search and rescue operations formally concluded by the end of the week, authorities announced that they were working to identify 89 recovered bodies. Approximately 200 individuals had initially been listed as unaccounted for, and while the number was expected to shrink as displaced residents checked in with authorities, the scale of the accounting effort remained significant. Hong Kong's large domestic helper workforce includes around 340,000 migrant workers, predominantly from Indonesia and the Philippines. Many live in high-density residential estates like Wangfuk Court, making tragedies of this scale disproportionately impactful on migrant communities. Meanwhile, survivors and displaced residents sought emergency assistance from government services. Among them was a 70-year-old resident who had been away from home when the fire erupted. Upon returning an hour after the initial outbreak, she described feeling unable to accept that the devastation she saw belonged to her own building. Her reaction mirrored the stunned grief of many others who lined up to register for aid and temporary accommodation. Hong Kong marked the tragedy with solemn public acknowledgement. Flags across the city were lowered to half-staff, and the chief executive led a citywide 3-minute silence with officials dressed in black, a gesture underscoring the magnitude of the event and the collective mourning of the community. As the investigation moves forward, questions surrounding construction oversight, material safety standards, alarm maintenance, and regulatory enforcement are poised to shape the city's political discourse for months. The fire at Wangfuk Court has forced a reckoning not only with the catastrophic event itself, but with the systemic vulnerabilities that allowed such a disaster to occur, despite documented warnings, inspections, and certifications.